joined this afternoon over the telephone by my guest, Dr. Mirvat Matkour, Professor of Political Science and Economy. A very good afternoon to you, Doctor.
Hello, India. How are you?
Very well indeed, Dr. Mirvat. Thank you so much for joining us. And let's go to our news starting from Ahram Online. And the headline reads, Egypt Sisi meets with major South Korean companies on last stop of Asian tour. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met with representatives of major South Korean companies on Friday morning and sealed the final stop on his Asian tour. Meetings included talks with representatives of several companies where he stressed Egypt's stable work environment, security and capacity for development and expansion in the market. The President also visited Incheon City and its international port, expressing his hopes that the Free Economic Zone could cooperate with the Suez Canal Free Economic Zone, which is currently under construction. El-Sisi started his Asian tour last Friday, visiting first Kazakhstan, then Japan, and finally South Korea. In South Korea, Sisi met with his counterpart and also visited the country's parliament, and he delivered a speech in front of the Japanese parliament. First, Dr. Mirvat, let's wrap up the president's Asian tour. In your opinion, how do you see the echo of President Sisi's Asian tour as a whole?
Well, let me tell you one thing. We have to move towards the East. We have been working with the West and the U.S. for the past 30 or 40 years. But has it really benefited our economy, this cooperation? I don't think so, or otherwise we wouldn't have seen the uprising of 2011 or even later the uprising against the ousted President Morsi in 2013. Mm-hmm. So there must have been something wrong in what we do or have been doing, or to the nature of what they extend to us as a developing nation. Mm-hmm. Okay. In addition, we have been heavily indebted in the past few years after the revolution or after the uprising of 2011. Definitely the situation till now is not as it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Okay. So moving to the East, this change from the nature of what the West gives or grants other nations certainly would be different. And we have lived that prior to that at the time of Nasser. Okay, we have then developed more industries, which is highly needed at this particular moment of time, especially that we have so chronic economic problems. Right. As we do have right now. Mm-hmm. So moving to the East was a necessity. It's not a luxury. Okay, so going to a country like Kazakhstan and getting or enjoying what they have as wheat, they have wheat and we need wheat at a reasonable price. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is what Kazakhstan can offer to us.
Indeed.
In addition, it is highly, developed in aerospace. Mm-hmm. And mind you, the Nile that we had launched in 2014, okay, it was launched from Kazakhstan.
Right.
And moreover, the Kazakhstan itself has these diversities of ethnicity, mm-hmm. and they have been living peacefully together. It's time to learn from other nations.
Indeed. So, Dr. Mirvat, speaking about learning from other nations, how do you think Egypt can benefit from the South Korean field, especially in the field of managing ports?
Very good economy, okay? Mm. It doesn't have so many natural resources, though Egypt has, but we haven't yet exploited it. Mm. But definitely South Korea has the IT technology, it has car industries, and especially education. Mind you, we have both started in the 60s our development process.
Right.
But now have a look at Korea, South Korea, and have a look at Egypt. Where are we and them?
Indeed.
Okay. With regard to Japan, definitely Japan is an advanced country, is one of the 8, okay, and the G8. And definitely we can learn from their educational process and the way they educate the youngsters, especially the youngsters.
Indeed. Dr. Mirvat, let's move to the Daily News Egypt, and the headline reads, Iraqi president to visit Egypt on Sunday. Iraqi President Fouad Massoum will visit Egypt on Sunday to meet with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. His visit, which is at the behest of al-Sisi, will involve discussions on bilateral relations and the latest developments in the region, particularly the fight against terrorism. And the visit comes after trips to Egypt by Iraq's ministers of defense and commerce in the past few months. Now, the importance of such a visit, especially in developing the portfolio regarding the fight against terrorism and extremism.
Well, it's, we are now trying to gather the Arabs all together, all the Arab nations, okay, to have one unified vision. One unified vision, not just politically, economically, the cooperation, the complementarity. All those slogans, if you remember, have been raised since the 1960s. Mm-hmm. We have been trying to gather the Arabs around one idea, which is how to cooperate together with dignity, with good understanding, and with a vision that we have set forth for our nation. Mm-hmm. We are trying to fulfill the aspirations of our people with regard to their welfare. And mind you, that the extremism, because it is coming from within our societies, it's much too dangerous than a foreign invasion. Because a foreign invasion, you know your enemy. But if it comes from your within, it's very difficult.
Indeed.
And it's a battle that doesn't end in 1 or 2 days, like a battlefield. Well, I'm fighting my enemy, and I know where is my enemy and how strong is my enemy. No, terrorist attacks, as you have seen, and we all have seen, since Daesh came to existence after our June uprising in 2013, it has come to the scene, and we now know how it was composed and why. But we have, it's not all about holding a gun against someone. It's really fighting the idea, the ideology, and this problem has been raised by His Excellency the President.
Indeed.
And he was, urging the clergymen and Al-Azhar to fight the idea, because it's only the idea that lasts. You see people who are committing, sabotage and exploding themselves, believing that they are martyrs, but if you get them to the right idea of what is Islam, it's peace. Mind you, we say, Assalamu alaikum. May
peace be upon you, yes.
May fall upon you. Mm-hmm. And this in itself is an indication that Islam is not all what they are doing. That is giving the worst picture of what is Islam.
Indeed. Dr. Mirvat, let's go to the World Bulletin, and the headline reads, 36 Palestinians left homeless as Israel demolishes homes. Israeli forces demolished dozens of structures, including a school in the northern West Bank this week, leaving 10 families homeless. The demolitions took place on Wednesday, south of Nablus in the northern West Bank, and in total 41 structures were destroyed, displacing 36 Palestinians, including 11 children. The army regularly destroys homes it claims that have been built without permission from the Israeli Authority. Now, Palestinians and their supporters say it's nearly impossible for them to obtain permits in part of the West Bank under full Israeli control, known as Area C, which accounts for about 60% of the territory. More aggravations between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and the current situation in the occupied East Jerusalem and the West Bank seems to be worsening for several Palestinian families.
Definitely. And the whole problem will persist for as long as the Israeli government does not want a Palestinian state to see life. And you have seen how many wars did all the Arabs go into in order to pursue this very idea that both of them now are facts, both of them are on the ground, both of them have the right to live. And they cannot really, expel the Palestinians or really put barriers for families to come together. This is not even, I just wonder, Inji, where is the Human Rights Watch?
Indeed.
They are, exactly, they just pop up when it comes to Egypt. But when it comes to our rights, they are just silent. And the human rights people, I just wonder where they are as well. Okay? Everybody is working for unifying families, for giving or a decent life. They are entitled to a decent life, no matter what the Israelis want. And for as long as they remember Boutros Ghali, God bless his soul, when he said, for as long as Israel is there, nobody will have peace. And this is exactly what the situation is at the moment in our region.
Indeed. Dr. Meva, let's go to the Daily Star Lebanon, and another headline reads, 2 Italian hostages rescued in Libya after companions slain. 2 Italian civilians held hostage in Libya since last July were freed just 48 hours after 2 fellow captives were allegedly executed by the Daesh terrorist group in the North African state. The 4 were employees of an Italian construction company, Bonatti, and were seized last year near the western Libyan city, near a compound owned by the energy group Eni. The families of Gino Policardo and Filippo Calcagno confirmed the pair had been released, and photos were posted on Facebook showing the bearded men calling home. A spokesman for security forces said the 2 men were released during a raid early Friday, and they were found alive during the raid by local fighters against one of the Daesh hideouts. And there was Libyan security forces attacked the Daesh terrorists and said 2 of the Italians were shot dead by the terrorists shortly beforehand. Now, the Italian hostage crisis, what are the impacts of such interventions, and do you think further foreign intervention on Libyan soil is expected in the near future?
I hope so. For one very small thing. They are just on our western borders. And our western border, as you know, is very long. Over 1,000 kilometers, which is a huge area to cover. If you remember, just yesterday or the day before yesterday, they tried to get into Egypt through Carmel Kawadir again. Okay, so I mean, look, the NATO, along with the United States, they have brought down Gaddafi, and they promised the area, to enjoy their self-governance through democracy. What they have put is an autocracy, a theologist. They wanted to put on the head of Egypt, Syria, Yemen, and Libya, and Tunisia, and we have seen that, Islamists. Okay, so, and we have learned from our own experience that such states do not really survive, because they are working against all our beliefs that we have been brought about on. We believe in our countries, we believe in their borders. They don't have a homeland. They don't believe in a homeland. They believe that all the world is their homeland. So how do you expect such people to survive in peace with other nations? And Egypt is fighting terrorism everywhere, inside and on its western borders, on its eastern borders, and even Sudan, as you see, is sometimes hesitant about its position, which is changing here and changing there. And we have a very good foreign policy, definitely, since the coming of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
And the President himself has called for the stopping of financial support, the flow of weapons to these terrorist groups.
And giving ammunition to those extremists. And if I remember well, the Americans, instead of giving the weapons to the Iraqis, they gave it to Daesh. And they have drones, and they are going to space, and still they are committing such mistakes. Come on, give me a break.
Right, Dr. Mirvat, continuing with our news items, moving to the World Bulletin. And another headline, UN envoy says Syrians should decide Assad's fate. United Nations envoy Staffan de Mistura said Friday that the Syrian people, not foreigners, should decide the fate of their President Bashar al-Assad. He said, can't we leave the Syrians to actually decide, and why should we be saying in advance what the Syrians should say? He said he remained optimistic about the ceasefire that came into force last weekend despite the continued breaches, and he said that 150,000 people have now received aid, but accepted this was still not enough. He did refuse to comment on the impact of the Russian airstrikes in support of the Syrian president, and this was the recent development with regards to the Syrian file. How do you see these recent comments by the United Nations envoy Staffan de Mistura, especially because it's a shift from the demand by the Western powers that Assad must step down and must leave?
Well, let me tell you one thing. For as long as the West is intervening in our region, we will never have peace. They are the ones who are complicating matters. They are the ones who are extending our arms and money through countries like Turkey and Qatar. Okay? For as long as they are doing that, don't tell me these factions that are here and there in Syria, they are representing the opposition. What opposition? Come on. This is all made up by the West. In truth, there is no opposition that is really, constituting a majority. What is there is, the situation is this. The people, like any other people, they want to participate in the government, they want to have a say upon their future, but Bashar al-Assad, like many in our regions, even some of the players in Syria, okay, they are authoritarian leaders. His father was like that, and he is not better. But regardless of our opinion and evaluation of President Bashar al-Assad, I want to tell you one thing. The one who has the right for what sort of a government they want to establish, who is to rule them, are the Syrians themselves.
Indeed.
And
which leads me to another question, Dr. Mirva. Do you think that the different Syrian communities can ever find a way to live together and reach that sort of agreement in the foreseeable future?
I don't think so. Because you see that even Saudi Arabia, for whatever reasons it has, it's now expanding the whole thing to Lebanon, okay? And in Lebanon with Hezbollah, okay, Hezbollah is supported by whom? It's supported by Iran. So in fact, the whole thing is getting out of hand. If it goes on like that, the whole region will be dragged into a real war. So far, some people and some, analysts, political analysts, have said that the Third World War has already started in Syria. I don't believe it yet, okay? Especially that Moscow and Washington do not want the escalation to go offhand. But sometimes it does. Okay?
Right.
Sometimes it does. And I am saying that everybody has to shut up, okay, and let the Syrians decide their future.
Indeed. Dr. Mirvat, our final item before we run out of time, we're moving to the Gulf today, and the headline reads, 4 Indian nuns and 12 others die in Yemen attack. Gunmen stormed a retirement home run by missionaries in the southern Yemeni port city of Aden on Friday, killing 16 people, including 4 Indian nuns. There was no immediate claim of responsibility, but it is expected that the surge in attacks are by the Daesh group. The killing spree began with 2 gunmen who first surrounded the home of the elderly, whilst 4 others entered the building. Then they moved from room to room, handcuffing victims before shooting them in the head. A nun who survived was rescued by locals. She hid inside a fridge in the storeroom after hearing a Yemeni guard shouting, "Run, run." The conflict in Yemen has escalated further, and now terrorists are attacking retirement homes, shooting people in cold blood.
That's what they are claiming to be custodians of Islam. Is that Islam again ingenuous?
Of course not, Dr. Mirvat. Now, the Saudi-Iranian row, do you think it has affected the Yemeni crisis? Do you think it has delayed a solution, a feasible solution for the Yemeni people who are suffering the most?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Because look, if you have the Houthis in the southern of Yemen, they want to dissect Yemen as they want to dissect Libya, as they want to dissect Syria, so that they are small constituents that can be easily, brought down. That's the aim of the West and the U.S. Look, the problem will persist because this is a tribal society, mind you. And they have Qaeda, they have Daesh, and God knows, and they have the Houthis. So what are you talking about? Okay. It's a very disastrous situation, as a matter of fact. And those who are paying for it dearly are the Yemenis themselves.
The civilians, yes.
And you've seen killing nuns. For heaven's sake, what our nuns are doing for them? Nothing. It's just to show how, malicious, how vicious they are, how aggressive they are, to make others fear them. And this is a very primitive society. It's not as a